All right, welcome everybody around the world. Welcome to all my subscribers. Sorry for my hair. Okay, so this list is very important. Everybody needs to hear it, right? I've been talking about when the end days are going to come for 7 years on YouTube. Virtually nobody listens to me, right? I got my book published. Virtually nobody has bought it. This is very important. This isn't a pile of baloney. This is dead real. This is dead serious. And if you call yourself a biblical person, whether Jewish or Christian, and you don't bother to listen to the evidence, which is biblical, it's not from my crazy imagination. If you don't listen to the evidence, you will be caught unawares. Okay? And unless you're Mr. and Mrs. Perfect, you might fail at Judgment Day because that's what's coming. It's the Judgment Day. Okay? So whether you're Jewish or Christian or you want to become a Bible believer, then pay attention. Okay? There are more than 7 prophecies in the Bible, more than 7 reasons to believe that the end of days is coming now. Sorry, this hair is driving me nuts. But in my book, I detail, most importantly, 7 prophecies that God gave. Okay, and in these 7 prophecies, God mentions for each one something to do with a period of time. Each one is a different length of time. God has said how long they will be, when to take the measure from, and all of that. So everything's mapped out. These 7 prophecies prove that it's 2024. Okay? They prove that it's 2024. I am not crazy. I'm not unbiblical. I am not heretic for saying that the end is coming in 2024. I'm only saying it, and I've been saying it for 7 years, because of the Bible prophecies, such as the prophecy of Daniel. But it's not just one prophecy that points to 2024. It's 7 grand prophecies. These 7 are so spectacular. That's why I've called them pillars of scriptural proof. Okay, because they are pillars of scriptural proof. But there is not just 7 prophecies that have been fulfilled or that point to the end. It's not about that. What I've got for everybody here today is a list of over 25 things. It's actually over 30 things altogether. Now, there are 25 prophecies in the Bible. Like I said, my book talks about 7, right? Plus a few others. But there are 25 prophecies in the Bible, okay? Things that were foretold to occur, and in over a period of like 2,000 years, okay? A very long period of time. In fact, a little bit longer, you could say, but keeping things simple. Okay, these aren't just random scatter prophecies and so forth. These are, 25 things, huge, big, nation changing, even world changing things that were foretold that have all come to pass, and they take place, each in their own time over that period of 2,000 years. It ends at the end of days. Okay? What I'm showing everybody with this list, what everybody has to appreciate, whether you're Jewish, Christian, or whatever, you have to hear this because it's quite logically undeniable. If you have brain cells, if you have common sense, you would be foolish, no matter what your belief system is, you would be foolish to ignore the fact that over 2,000 years ago, literally, these predictions were made, and that all of these 25 have come true. It is impossible. The biggest atheist scientist, okay, would agree that it is impossible for all of these things to have been predicted literally 2,000 years ago and for all of them to come true. It would show you logically that there must be credibility too. The most important thing is that out of the 25 things that were foretold, these are all in some way pertaining to when the end is going to come. Okay? There's only one prophecy left to occur, because all of the other ones leading up to it have already been fulfilled. This is what I want everybody to appreciate. There's only one left. That one that is left is the arrival of Messiah. Okay? That is the last step. A few months ago, I made a video. And a few weeks ago, let me reword that better. A few months ago, I made a video where I read through this list that I'm going to go through now. But there were 2 things left to be fulfilled: the Gog Magog nations to rise up against Israel, and then the arrival of Messiah. We know from the Bible, it says that when Gog Magog rise up and attack Israel, it's from the Tanakh, then God and Messiah arrive with the fiery heavens and hailstones. Okay? So a few weeks ago, those nations that Ezekiel names hadn't started attacking Israel yet. But now they have basically grouped together, and they're attacking Israel and threatening destruction and so forth. So now I can actually say that second last domino has already started. So there's only one left now, which is the arrival of Messiah. Technically, that second last domino has to play out in full, which is Gog Magog actually go out and attack Israel. When they do and attack Jerusalem, when they surround Jerusalem, when they attack Israel, that's when God Messiah come down. Okay, so a few months ago when I made this video, those nations hadn't mounted up against Israel. So I couldn't say that, oh, every single one of my point is that right now, everything that the Bible says would occur over these 2,000 years has happened. And the only thing left is for unfortunately, for them to go full blast against Israel, which will basically invoke the arrival of Messiah and God in the judgment day. Okay, so that's the times that we're in. Now, one of the most important things I like to point out is the 6,000 years. Now, Judaism says we're about 200 years off. There's another 200 years to go. But even Judaism right now, today, because these Gog Magog nations are attacking Israel, even Judaism says, well, it's probably not going to be 200 years in the future. It's probably going to happen now, because even they have the wisdom to see that the prophecies are being fulfilled, even though they don't, nobody else out there has identified the final beast king and all that. And that is pertinent to deciphering Daniel and cracking the mystery. But anyways, I'll get into the list here. These are all the things that have been fulfilled. Okay, you cannot deny the magnificence of this. Okay, any one of these things could have been a prediction that failed to play out, and then, you know what I mean? But all of these did come to pass. So if we go and start at the top of the list, okay, in Daniel 9, Daniel foretold, and Daniel 9 was written a couple hundred years BC, okay, maybe 400, maybe 500, if it was Daniel himself who wrote it. Whoever wrote it, it was written hundreds of years BC, verifiably. It was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Those are dated to about 200 or 300 BC. So at the end of the day, at the start of the list here, we're going back past 2,000 years, okay? That's how long ago these predictions start, okay? So in Daniel 9, Daniel foretold that after the Messiah dies, that Israel and its temple would fall. This, of course, came true. When, whether you want to believe Jesus was Messiah or not, after Jesus died, the fact is the temple did fall and Israel did fall. Okay? Next, in Matthew 24, Jesus foretold that after he died, Israel and its temple would fall, drawing a parallel to what Daniel had foretold. And as we know from history, after Jesus died, within 30 or 40 years, the temple fell and Israel fell. So those things came true. Next, this isn't a prophecy. This is one of my discoveries. I believe I noted in the book. If it's not in the book, might have been discovery made after I published the book. It's in my videos on my channel. This is a mathematical uncanny discovery. There's exactly 11.11 times, the time being 360 years. Okay, exactly from when Seth was born until Jesus's baptism in 23 AD. Okay. Why is Seth important? Well, as I detail in the book and in my videos, Seth was the first true mortal born from a woman. Okay, so son of man, we hear that term used a lot. Well, Adam wasn't a son of man. Eve wasn't a daughter of man. They were created, and they weren't even created as mortals. They were cursed with mortality. Okay, the first mortal from whom the lineage comes is Seth. Okay, and from Seth until this current year, 2024, is exactly 6,000 years. I proved this in the first chapter here, broken down on the pages with all the verses, not 1 year of wiggle room. This is solid. Nobody, I don't care who you are, could say that I'm wrong here, because the evidence is all right there on the pages for you. Every single verse, okay? Every single chunk of time that you have to add up, the kings, and all of that there, okay? All the math's broken down for everybody. So it's undeniable. It has been 6,000 years for mortal humans, okay, to this current year. That's undeniable. And what I found mathematically is that there's exactly 11.11 times, which equals 4,000 years. You can't make it 11.111. You can't make it 11.1101. It has to be exactly 11.11 for it to be 4,000 years from Seth until Jesus' baptism in 23 AD. Okay? If anybody out there is wondering where to get the number for 23 AD, well, the Bible says when Artaxerxes would make his decree to rebuild Jerusalem street and the wall, that 483 years later Jesus died. That means Jesus died in 26 AD because Artaxerxes historically made that decree in 457. That's a fact. Okay, and no other year is viable. That's what all the scholars say. 457. Jesus died in 26. He taught for 3 years before he died, so he was baptized in 23 AD. Thank you. Okay, so there's exactly 11.11 times, 1111, from the birth of the first mortal until when Jesus, the Messiah, was baptized in 23 AD. Then there's exactly one period of 666 years, 0.666, but nonetheless, exactly one period of 666 years until the abomination, which I'll get to later in the list, was built on the Temple Mount in 688, 689 AD. It cannot be a coincidence that this is a period of 666. Then exactly two more periods of 666.6, or to whatever decimal place you want to take it, which culminate in, guess what, 2024. Because 3 times 666.6 equals 2,000 years. So when you're looking at this, you have 1111 until the baptism, the appointing of Messiah, and then 3 periods of 666 until the end of days. The first period of 666 marks when the abomination will be built on the Temple Mount. You can't make this stuff up. Next, this is not a prophecy, but technically it is, but it's also signs. So the crucifixion darkness when Jesus died. So the New Testament didn't foretell, it told us about the crucifixion darkness. It claimed it. Okay. Now, a lot of people don't know. I think I'm the only person on this earth who's noticed this. I've made videos about it. I've heard any other person on the earth mention this. But in the books of the prophet Amos, in chapter 8 or 9, he talks about that one time. I've got videos on it. So without wasting more time here, Amos actually foretold this and said that it would go dark at midday, okay, when the land is to be punished, and whatever his exact wording was. Amos foretold it, but nonetheless, going on, the crucifixion darkness was testified, okay, by a dozen ancient sources, half of which weren't even Christian, but they testified to the fact that this event occurred, the crucifixion darkness. And a number of these sources even testify about the earthquake, which the New Testament says occurred. Also, a little science for everybody. Seismology, which is the study of earth and earthquakes and all of that, only somewhat recently could confirm through their archaeological and seismological and geological data, they confirmed that an earthquake, a large one, did indeed hit that area where Jesus was crucified in the year that Jesus died, 26 AD. That's another fact. Okay, so all of these signs and prophecy help validate everything so far. Next, Judaism records, even though Judaism doesn't believe Jesus was Messiah, they rejected him then, they still to this day reject that concept, even though the very fact is that the year Jesus died, 26 AD, okay, right after Jesus died, certain strange omens started taking place in the temple. And Judaism are the ones who recorded this, not Christians. Judaism themselves said that for 40 years until the fall in 66 to 70 AD, okay, because it started to fall in 66, it was completed in 70 AD, the fall, okay, 40 years starting at the death of Jesus. Now, in their text, they don't say, oh, at the death of Jesus, these things occurred, because it would be a problem for them. But what they did do is record these strange, miraculous omens. Okay, so the year Jesus died, for 40 years, what took place in the temple is as follows. The continual flame, the priests and all of them would try to keep it lit, and it would keep going out all by itself. So they couldn't keep the continual flame lit. What does that mean according to Scripture? God said, if this flame stops being continual, you will stop to be a nation before me. So they were getting a warning from God for 40 years that their nation was going to fall, and it did fall. The next omen that occurred is that the scarlet thread on the day of Yom Kippur refused to turn white. That used to be a miracle Israel was witness to every single year at Yom Kippur. They would put the red thread on the goat, and it would turn white if God forgave Israel's sins. Okay, but for 40 years, that scarlet thread would not turn white. The miracle never occurred. That scripturally shows you that God in some way has not forgiven their sins. They're going to be punished for something. Okay, they're in trouble, basically. And Judaism recorded this omen. Okay, and the third omen was that the holy temple doors that were supposed to stay shut and could only be opened at certain times by certain people, they would just open and shut by themselves. Okay, basically desecrating or violating the holy space. Okay, so these omens all took place. So again, those aren't in the Bible, but all of these things so far, I've only gone down my list, and I'm only on point 5 out of like 30 things. Okay, but all of these things took place. This is just at the start of that period of time, 2,000 years ago. Okay, then next, in the New Testament and the book of Acts, it is foretold that the gospel will be taken to the whole world before the end comes. Now, let me just say, and let me point out for all these prior things, these predictions that were just made, I won't do this for every point, so it'll take forever. But I just want to point out, you could think this for yourself as I go down the list. Each of these predictions are big, bold claims. Anybody could guess these things, but nobody can make a big, bold prediction like this about the fate or the rebirth of nations, things that affect the whole planet. Nobody can make big, bold predictions like this and then all just come true, right? These are big predictions. You can make a big prediction, but it may not come true, especially if you're not a prophet. The fact is that these were prophets. They made these, they didn't predict it, but they foretold it and it occurred. Okay, big, bold things. The Messiah would arrive but die. That's a big, bold statement, but it occurred. Israel falling. It just got rebuilt with the second temple. Why would it fall again? Well, they foretold it and it happened. Okay, and then where is it next? Okay, we're on to the next point. Okay, that's just an example, right? Each of these things are big, bold predictions. You know what I mean? But they all came true. So next, in New Testament and Acts, it was foretold that the gospel will be taken to the whole world. Again, a huge, big, bold claim. Back then, the whole world was full of different tribes of peoples who all opposed each other, didn't want to know each other, didn't want to care about what the other person believed, and they all fought each other religiously. Okay? Just probably even worse than what we do today. Whole tribes would wipe each other out constantly all the time back then, conquer one land, overtake lands, empires all the time changing, right? The gospel will be taken out to the whole world before the end comes, starting with the disciples and the apostles in the first years after Jesus died, which are the final 7 years, by the way, of Daniel's prophecy in chapter 9, which includes the Pentecost dispersal of the mission and the Holy Spirit. So this was a prediction. It was foretold that the gospel would be taken out to the whole world. Well, it did. Okay, if you ask any historian, any scholar today, what caused the global decline in paganism? It was Christianity. The spread of Christianity is what caused the decline of paganism, because Christianity was taken throughout the world and everybody stopped being pagan. Almost everybody. On the earth right now, I think it's less than 15% of the world population remain as pagans. Okay, not counting Hinduism, they're a big chunk as well, right? But counting Hinduism, it only takes up to like 20% or something like that, 25%. I had the numbers written down before, right? But actual pagan tribes who didn't get Christianized or brought to the Bible or whatever, it's less than 15% of the people in the world. They tend to usually be on scarce island nations scattered around the world in the oceans, right? Now, next, right? This mission would lead to the whole. Oh, I already said that there. Oh, actually, I have the numbers here. Yeah, I got the numbers right. So next foretelling was that Paul warned from Jesus that the apostasy of Christianity would occur before the end comes, which happened with early Christianity abandoning the original theology for new doctrines of men, starting around 300 AD with Catholicism, then with Protestantism later. Both of these denominations rooted out all Unitarianism and Unitarians and thus obscured the true theology. I'm not getting into theological debates here. Some people might argue with me on that, but check my channel. You could also check my other book, My Systematic Theology, and you'll see it proven. They did abandon it, okay? Jesus didn't give 300 million different denominations, but we have hundreds, maybe thousands of Christian denominations, different sets of belief systems, and it's just ridiculous. God only gave one. Jesus gave one. The original is what I detail in the book. The original is very simple, but nope, they wanted to change it, add to it, and this was the falling away. But anyways, in Revelation 12, and again, that's a big prediction. I mean, Jesus had just left the earth dying, saying, hey, spread this doctrine to the world. A great, wonderful thing, right? That doctrine described in Luke in that very verse was teach the world to reform. That's the doctrine. There's not one church today that teaches that, right? And the point is they did obscure it. Okay, and that's a big, bold claim to make, because you're expecting Christianity to flourish, but yet you're foretelling that it's going to go into apostasy, right? Big, bold claim, but it did come true, whether you like it or not. If you want to be a Bible believer, you have to accept that it came true. Next, in Revelation 12, Jesus foretold that the people of Israel would be in exile for 1,260 years. Okay, this, of course, came true. This ties into the next point, so I won't elaborate too much on this one here. In Revelation, Jesus foretold the coming of the final beast kingdom, which was Islam. In Matthew 24, Jesus quoted Daniel and foretold that the abomination of desolation would come after him, after Jesus, and be built on the Temple Mount. All those three things did come true. Israel was in exile for 1,260 years while Islam ruled over Israel, starting in the year 688 when they built the abomination, the Dome of the Rock on the Temple Mount. They ruled for 1,260 years until 1948. Go learn some history, that's a fact. Next, in Daniel 11, Daniel foretold that the final beast kingdom, which was Islam, would be founded by someone who opposes Israel, worships a new unknown God in a new religion, and alters the biblical law of God as part of their religion. No other religion or nation on the planet has ever done this in history except for Islam. Okay, next, in Revelation, Jesus foretold that the lamb-like beast would be a false prophet who would by force and falsehoods make the world worship the final beast kingdom of Islam, which came true with Islam, which is the only other religion on earth which incorporates Jesus, hence lamb-like, into its own theology. No other religion does. In Daniel 7, Daniel foretold that Israel would be ruled over by the final beast kingdom. He specified that the beast kingdom's 11th ruler, this is in Daniel 7, would mark the start of a period of 1,260 years when the beast kingdom would rule over Israel. This, like I said, aligns with 688 AD when the 11th ruler of Islam, just like Daniel said, the 11th ruler is the one who built the Dome of the Rock on the Temple Mount. Prophecy fulfilled. These are huge, bold claims that had no reason to come true if they weren't prophecy, but all these highly specific things have come true. Now we're getting into periods of time being inserted here, okay, and being relevant here. And even with the numbers, it's come true to the exact year, okay? And it's only going to get deeper and bigger and better as I go down the list. Right? So in Daniel 11 and 12, Daniel specifies that the abomination will be built on the Temple Mount by the final beast kingdom, and that the period of 1,260 years rule, like I said, is taken from the completion of the scattering. This agrees with the 1948 AD rebirth of Israel, a historical fact, marking the 1,260 years from when the Dome of the Rock was built, and thus marking the true historical start of the ingathering. Meaning 1948 was the start of the ingathering. That's a historical fact. Israel was reborn, the people started going back there. That's the ingathering. Okay, what marks the start of the period of 1,260 years is the completion of the scattering, the complete opposite. Okay, Islam invaded Israel and conquered it in 640 AD. Okay, and a few rulers later, the 11th ruler is the one who built the abomination. And it says in Daniel 7 that the 11th ruler marks the start of 1,260 years of them ruling over Israel. Okay, so the completion of the scattering was in 688 AD with the Dome of the Rock being built and established. That's the Temple Mount with the temple on it was like God's signet ring. It was like the stamp and the seal of God on Israel. And for the temple to be wiped out and replaced with a new monument to a new and unknown God who opposes God of the Bible and rewrote the Bible and rewrote the laws of God in defiance of God. That is the ultimate fulfillment. Okay, so next, in the Matthew 24 fig tree parable, Jesus foretold that Israel would be reborn at the end of days, towards the end of days, as a sign of the imminent end. Historically, as I already said, Israel was reborn in 1948 AD. Okay, so you have to consider that too. Jesus said that when you see Israel reborn, that's a sign the end is near. We all take for granted that Israel's here right now, but prior to 1948, it wasn't. Okay, it was ruled over by Islam. Okay, and again, each one of these things, big, bold predictions, claims, things to foretell, but yet they all came true. Next, in Matthew 10, Jesus foretold that the gospel will be taught in and from the reborn Israel, and all the cities of Israel would be reached before the end. Now, there are indeed churches in every city of Israel, albeit they may not all be teaching authentic Christianity at our modern time. Doesn't change the fact, though. And we also have the internet, so everybody anywhere in Israel can hear true Christianity and so forth. But I'm not getting into theological things, right? But let's just keep things simple for now. In First Enoch, the prophecy of 4,900 years, which I detail in my book here, is we are told that it's to be taken 500 years before the flood, which was at 2951 BC, which gives an end result of 1948 AD. So is Enoch's famous prophecy actually culminates in the same year, 1948, with the rebirth of Israel. And I have a few signs here written as well. In 1948, the Second World War had just come to an end, which had been an attempt to destroy the Israelites. Also, in 1947, 1948, the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, which gave legitimacy to all the books of the Bible and to First Enoch. Okay, prior to the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the oldest copies of any biblical text, whether New or Old Testament, were from the Common Era. Okay, and Tanakh texts, 500 to 1000 AD. I mean, most people would be shocked to learn that, but they didn't have any copies older than like 500 AD or so until they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. There was a huge find. It happened the same year, 1948. In 1947, 1948, UFOs started to appear over the Earth, and sightings would only increase, as statistics prove, until 2024. And Jesus said that there will be signs in the sun, moon, and the stars. And without fussing over whether these UFOs are angels or demons or a mix or whatever, it's just something undeniable, observable. I've seen UFOs. I know they're real. It all started in 1948. Okay? Yes, there were a few UFOs before that, but the vast majority of sighting, it all started in 1947, 1948. Okay? In Daniel 12, next point, Daniel foretold that Israel would be reborn and that the people ingathering after the 1260 years rule of the beast kingdom ends, with 75 years remaining until the end day itself, which will be, as God says, on the 1335th day year. Okay, this pinpoints 2024 mathematically as the end day, the end of days. Okay. Next, the Torah reveals that there have been exactly 6,000 years from the birth of Seth unto 2024 AD, as I mentioned at the start. This is chapter 1 of my book. Okay, another undeniable, you can't ignore this. It's been 6,000 years. We know that when Jesus comes, according to Christianity, he's going to usher in the seventh millennia, a millennia of rest. Okay, the seventh day is the day of rest. It would make sense that he's doing that at the end of 6,000 years. Even in Judaism, that doesn't even believe in Jesus. They have the same concept that after 6,000 years, Messiah comes and there's 1,000 years rest. Well, guess what? It has been 6,000 years of mortal man since the first mortal son of man, Seth. It's 2024 is the 6,000th year. You can't ignore this. Okay, next point. In Psalm 90, the prophecy of 70 to 80 years for the final generation after Israel's rebirth shows a range of 2018 to 2028. But the verse says it is more than 70, but less than 80. And it is cut off, implying that it is 75 years and thus 2024, which fits exactly, that reasoning fits exactly with what Daniel specified from God. Next, in the Isaiah prophecy, which is something I discovered, I appear to be the only person who's ever realized this. I published it in my book. But nonetheless, it's super important. The Isaiah prophecy of Israel receiving a double portion of punishment, as I talk about in the book, it's related to the period of time in which Israel disobeyed God. There were 999 years exactly where bad kings ruled over Israel. This actually ended with the Messiah, Jesus, being rejected and killed, okay, during the reign of that, the final reign with the Herods, right? So we had 999 years. This starts after Solomon. So David and Solomon were righteous. After Solomon, his rule ended, counted them one by one every single year. It's 999 years exactly till the year Jesus died. Okay, Israel was then to receive double punishment, as God said in Isaiah's prophecy, which is 1,998 years of punishment. Okay, which end in 2024. Okay, so again, we have, this can't be a coincidence. God says Israel will be punished double for her sins. Well, she continued to sin for 999 years. The worst thing of all was rejecting Messiah and him ending up getting put to death at the hands of the Gentiles, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, that's all part of the same program. And Israel fell after that. That 999 years doubled, ends in 2024. Okay, next, this is also linked to that. I talk about it in the book as well. When Jesus made the famous Gethsemane prayer, this is actually a parable. I don't think anybody else has realized this. I appear to be the only person who's realized it and taught on it. But in his parable, he reveals that there will be 2 watches and a third final watch. In each of these watches, he returns to the earth, it says. Okay. Now, in Psalm 90 that I just mentioned, it specifies that a day is like 1,000 years with God, and this is called a watch. That's what Psalm 90 says. So when Jesus in his Gethsemane prayer parable is revealing that he comes on the third watch, this means after 2,000 years, he comes at the start of the third. This lines up with him coming at the end of the 6,000 at the start of the seventh. It also lines up with Hosea's prophecy where he comes after 2 days and heals them on the third. Okay, it's all the same one thing. Okay, so the Gethsemane prayer parable of 2 watches and a third final return, i.e. 2,000 years later, is from 23 AD to 2023 AD. The first return is after Jesus resurrected, because it talks about him coming back 3 times in that Gethsemane story, right? In that parable. The first return is after Jesus resurrected. He died, he left, he came back. That's his first return. The second return is at the first millennium, okay? Then the third return, which is the final return, is at the end of days. And like I said, this links to the Hosea prophecy of after 2 days, 2,000 years, we are healed. Okay? Now, next point. In the perspective of the marriage feast versus specifically the mention of Jesus coming on the third watch is made, thus again, in agreement at the end of 2,000-year period. Now, Jesus said he is doing works for 2 days and then is made perfect. So let me just clarify for people. I clarify in the book, I clarify in my videos. Don't get confused. There's 2 different things that seem very similar here. The Isaiah prophecy about the double cup of wrath. This is 1,998 years. I was exact. They sinned for 999. I'm not going to add a year to that. Double that is 1,998. But this is pertinent to when Jesus died. That marks the end of the 999. So being exact, from that point there, 26 AD, going forward, 1,998 is exactly 2024. Okay. However, when you're talking about the Gethsemane prayer of watches, periods of 2,000 years, the prophecy of Hosea, this is related, but it's different numbers. But it still culminates at the same time point. The Gethsemane prayer is taken from, as I reason in the book and in my videos, taken from Jesus's baptism, which is just under 3 years before he was put to death. He was baptized in 23 AD. 2,000 years later, it's at the end of 2023 AD, i.e. in 2024 AD. So it's the same thing, same package, same program, but just different prophecies, different perspectives. They still point to the same one thing, which is actually quite fantastic proof when you think about it, because they're completely unrelated matters. So like I was saying, in the perspective of the marriage feast versus specifically the mention of Jesus coming on the third watch is made verbatim at the third watch, thus at the end of the 2,000 years. So that's reinforcing what was said above, right? Next, Jesus said he is doing works for 2 days and then is made perfect on the third. There's a verse where he says this, I covered in my book. He's doing works for 2 days, then is made perfect on the third. This is another hint to him arriving at the third millennium in this series, which would be at the 7th millennium in terms of the week. Okay, so third millennium meaning after 2,000 years. Okay, the only logical reason Jesus would make this statement, as I argue in my book and in my videos, is to do with this. Because every other verse where it talks about him being dead for 2 days and rising on the third or something like that, there's lots of those verses. He's dead for 2 days. Here is a verse where Jesus says he is doing works for 2 days and then made perfect on the third. That's a reference to he is going to be busy doing stuff for 2,000 years and then he is being made perfect on the third. Okay, next, I also want to point out that it's worth noting that there are numerous references to the Son of Man, i.e. Jesus, being risen on the third day. And I think that it could be that it's said so often to serve as a subliminal hint to the third millennium, as I've just been saying. Because it's talking about the Son of Man, that not just Jesus, but that also references humans. So humans will be risen up on the third day. That's my point. So all the times we would hear that in the verses that the Son of Man, Jesus, would be risen on the third day after 2 days, these are actually hints as well that humankind will be risen up on the third day. Next, another sign is that the Star of Jacob, the morning star of Jesus, this could very well, I'm not saying it is, but could very well be the Corona Borealis supernova, which is supposed to occur this year in 2024, and which should be visible to the human eye. Next, that's not an important point though, but it's worth mentioning because if it does flare up and show like a brand new big star, that would just be fantastic, even more fantastic. But next, this one's more important. There were indeed red auroras in the skies, in the heavens, a blood color. I've seen the videos, the photos, in numerous places on the earth in these last few years. And numerous volcanoes erupted with pillars of smoke going up. Now, why is this important? Although these events do periodically occur, they don't occur all the time. Red auroras are pretty rare. I think the last time they occurred was 60 years ago, 60 years ago, when I was doing my research. And volcanoes erupt. Yeah, we all know that. But in these last few years, we've got the red auroras plus numerous volcanoes erupting, sending up pillars of smoke. So again, not a major point, but God did say in Joel, and it was repeated in the New Testament, that these would be some of the only signs that he would give us. So it's worthy to point out that they actually did occur. Okay, red, blood red auroras up in the sky. Looks like the sky is blood red. Okay, next. As I detail in the book, this one is very complex, so I'm not going to get deep into it here. It's just very brief. There's actually 7 times, again, 7 times 360, but 7 times of punishment for Nebuchadnezzar in a parable that's relayed to him in the book of Daniel. So we're told that Nebuchadnezzar is the head of the beasts and of the statue. A lot of people don't take this further, but I did. I went pretty deep in that chapter. Nonetheless, we're told that Nebuchadnezzar will be punished for 7 times. If Nebuchadnezzar is the head of the beast, 7 times is 2,520 years. This, ironically, as I explained in the book, is long-winded. Some might say it's a little far-fetched, but the numbers work out so perfect that it can't be a coincidence. But nonetheless, 2,520 years, this correlates to the 572 BC fall of Tyre. Tyre, by the way, Nebuchadnezzar took over. So in 572 BC, Tyre fell. 2,520 years later is exactly 1948 AD. So we're told that there'll be 7 times that Nebuchadnezzar is going to be punished for 2,520 years. How Nebuchadnezzar for 2,520 years? Well, he's the head of the statue. He's the head of all those other later parts of that statue, all those other kingdoms. He's the head. That period ends 1948, if you're taking it from the fall of Tyre. My reasoning for that's in the book. Again, can't be a coincidence. Next, it's not a major point though, but still important. Next, Gog-Magog nations would mount for war against Israel. This is the final thing, the second last domino, like I said at the introduction. Okay, this is in the book of Ezekiel, that the Gog-Magog nations will rise and surround Israel and Jerusalem to attack it, and that this would invoke the arrival of God and Messiah. It would be the cause of their arrival. They would arrive because this is happening and when it happens. Okay, this is the final domino. Now, a few months ago, we couldn't say that this was starting to be fulfilled. But right now we can, because those verses in Ezekiel specify who the nations are that comprise Gog-Magog. May not be literally all of them, but he names some of them. It's Africa, okay? Syria, Lebanon, Iran, and Turkey. They are named. It says Persia. That's Iran. That's Iraq. Okay? It says Togarmah to the north. Togarmah and Gomer. This is Lebanon and Turkey. Syria was Put, P-H-U-T. Cush, Africa. Literally names them all. These are the nations, less so Africa, but you still have huge Islamic force in Africa anyways, which would logically be in support of all this. But nonetheless, Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Turkey are. You got Hezbollah, you got Hamas attacking Israel, threatening all this. So it's coming true. Okay, so the only thing left to occur is for that second last domino to tip over, for them to actually attack Israel full blown. When they do that, it's hit the last domino, which is God and Messiah will arrive. Okay, and it says that when they arrive, the heavens will be fiery, and there'll be fiery hailstones, meteors falling down. Now, is there any precedence in science for large meteors or meteors to be falling down? Well, yes, several large meteors. In fact, continent destroyers or even civilization destroyers have skimmed past the Earth within the lunar distance in the last year or few years. A lot of them. Okay? If they had just hit the Earth and deviated slightly, we wouldn't be here. Okay? The other thing is, if you look, I did the research, proved it, it's real. Meteor impacts and bolides, which are when meteors and such come into the Earth, but they don't hit the ground, they burn up and look fantastic and all that. Those are bolides. Meteors and bolides having meteorites are the ones that hit, whatever. Meteors and bolides have increased over the last 75 years. I've looked at the charts. They have profoundly increased. So there is a precedence, my point is, for fiery heavens and fiery hailstones coming. Okay, there's a precedence for that. All it would take is for one meteor or one comet up there to be fragmented and to come down, rain down with all these fiery rocks, and it will fulfill that. Okay, so losing my voice from talking nonstop. Anyways, that's the list of over 24, 25 prophecies, altogether 30 or more reasons. And there you go. So you can't say it's not going to happen. It's got to happen. It's not just, oh, there's like one prophecy in the Bible. It's driving me nuts here. It isn't that there's just one prophecy in the Bible and I'm taking things out of context and I want it to be 2024. No, these are all valid reasons why it's going to occur. Okay, it's going to occur in 2024. You better get ready. Don't say I didn't warn you. All it's going to take is for those nations to go attack Israel. Okay, that's all it's going to take. Even if it doesn't cause God and Messiah to come to the earth, it's going to cause World War III. Okay, you got Russia, you got Korea, you got all these other nations who got nuclear power. Israel's got nuclear power. I think even Iran has nuclear power. You got all this hoopla going on here. It's going to be World War III anyways, even if the Bible stuff isn't coming true. Okay, so don't say I didn't warn you. I've been warning people for 7 years on YouTube, faithfully claiming 2023, 2024. Okay, and all these things occurred. I warned people that in the last 3.5 years of that, all these big bad things will be happening on the earth, diseases and all this. What disease outbroke on the earth in the exact year that I said it would start? It was you know what. Okay, so you can't say we haven't had our warnings. We have had our warnings. We're at the end of the 3.5 years. It's going to happen this year. Okay, it's not a whole pile of fantastic hoopla, the Bible. No, it's not. The angels, the heavens are outer space. The Bible says we go to a new earth and that this one is destroyed. I mean, it's quite clear what's going to happen. The angels are going to come down and rescue us and take us away. And those who don't deserve that are going to be stuck here, pummeled by space rocks and destroyed and get all the revelation events unleashed on them. It's very realistic. We're going to be taken off to a new earth. Like it says, maybe we get to come back here when this one's replenished. But it's a very reasonable scenario. That's not, we have modern technology. We know that there must be other civilizations out there in the universe. The Bible tells us that God's abode is in the heavens. It says that amidst the stars of the north. Okay, there's too many verses like that. We're going to a new earth. That's what's going to happen. That's not as far-fetched to us now. I mean, if you lived thousands of years ago, all you would know is this one planet. And if somebody said, oh, God and Messiah will come from the heavens with angels and they'll take us away into the sky to another earth, that would sound like hoopla. But we live in the modern age. That's not that far-fetched anymore. We know that there are billions of inhabitable planets in our galaxy alone. Billions. They can't even be counted. It's ridiculous. Okay, and they discover more and more every day. So don't tell me that it's unrealistic. Don't consider it being unrealistic. It's 100% realistic that we will be spared. And if you think it's so unrealistic that the earth could be hit by giant meteors and destroyed, well, then look at the moon. The moon is covered in giant meteor impacts. Just because the moon doesn't have grass and trees on it, that's the only reason why you don't see all the meteor impacts on the earth. Okay, our earth gets hit by stuff all the time. It's going to continue to get hit by stuff all the time. We don't have a magic safety blanket over the earth. It's going to get hit by stuff. Okay, the Bible says at the end of the days, it's going to get hit by stuff. The good people will be rescued. It's exactly what happened with Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah, rocks came down from the sky and destroyed the city. The righteous people, Abraham and his folk, were taken out by the angels. That's what's going to happen to us. And Jesus said that the end of days is going to be just like the scenario with Sodom and Gomorrah. Sudden destruction from the heavens, rocks and fire from the heavens. The angels will come and take away the good. just before it happens or while it starts. Okay, so just get ready, folks. Okay, sounds like a sci-fi movie, but it's gonna happen. I'm a believer in the Bible. I've patiently waited for this my whole life, my whole adult life, especially, and it's more especially so the last 7 years where I've been warning people. Okay, so if 2024 nothing happens, don't unclick your seatbelt. Wait, 2025. Maybe it'll happen 2025. You know what I mean? You don't want to give up all hope, and then 2025 it happened. Just stay on alert. Stay alert. If these nations weren't attacking Israel right now, I have a little bit less reason to believe all this stuff. But like I said, I just read through the list of all the good reasons, right? Pertinent to the end time itself is the 7 core pillars of prophecy here. Those are undeniable. Daniel 12 says when it's going to happen, and it's 2024. It's undeniable. Blessed is he who waits and counteth and knows when it's going to happen. That's what he says in Daniel 12. Blessed is he who waiteth earnestly and does come to the days, the 1335th. And Ezekiel 4 is where God lays down in repeated form, where he says that a day is like a year. Okay, day for a year, day for a year. This is what God says in Ezekiel 4 when he gives periods of time. He said to Ezekiel, oh, these 380, 390 days, it's a day for a year. It represents 390 years. So God enforced that in Ezekiel 4. In Daniel 12, 1335th day, that's 1335th year. Why would God give a prophecy about 1335 days? You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. So why would he give a prophecy about 1,260 days? Israel was never exiled for 3.5 years. They've been exiled for nearly 2,000 years. Okay, so it's day for a year principle. Therefore, God explicitly told Daniel in Daniel 12 when the end would come. He even said that it's the end of days, and blessed is he who makes it to this point. That is 2024, which is the end of 6,000 years, which is the end of all those other prophecies that I already mentioned. It's the end of the 2,000 years from when Jesus was baptized. It's at the start of the third watch. It's after the 1,998 years of Israel being punished. Okay, all these things come together with 2024. It is undeniable, folks, that it's got to happen. Okay, and if we're months or a year off or whatever, let's not worry. Let's not fuss. We have more than enough reason to believe that it could happen. It's not crazy to believe it. It's a founded reason. Like I said, any mathematician and scientist could crack the numbers on these prophecies. What are the odds of all these prophecies being made 2,000 years ago or more, but all of them still come true? I would love to see the mathematical odds on that. It would be impossible. Okay, and for all these things to be said by different prophets and for all of them to come true in unison shows one overall truth, which is that they are real prophecy from God and it's going to happen. Okay, so anyways, take care, folks. God bless. Help spread the awareness, the message. Even better, get a copy of the book. It's only $11.11. Okay, it's got international copyright, but get the book, share it with your friends, lend it to a church, make people aware. Okay, anyways, take care, folks. God bless. Thank you all for coming by. Always, in case you don't know, I always read the comments afterwards. That way I don't get distracted in my talk. Take care, folks.